researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
Merry Christmas!
Good evening, Malcontents. I am David, and I am the Malcontent, and welcome to a special, uplifting Christmas Eve version. We really wanted this to be uplifting, but the news cycle did not cooperate with us. But welcome anyway to Christmas Eve, to our special episode at a special time. I want to go ahead and pull in our co-host, Jennifer Smith. Jennifer, how are you doing on this delightful Christmas Eve?
From the looks of the screen, I'm like really grainy, but I'm doing as well as can be expected on this very 2020 holiday kind of season. How are you?
I'm trying to hang in there and just reminding myself that it's only 6 more days. 2020 turns 21 and adds alcohol and excess to the mix of what has been 2020.
Yes, absolutely.
What is going on out here? Oh, God!
Oh my God! What is going on here?
And it wouldn't surprise me if that actually happened in this year. We really, the editorial board talked about it. Jennifer and I talked about it. We really wanted to focus on Happy tonight, but the news cycle is just not letting us focus on Happy tonight. There are a couple of stories. There's actually 3 stories that we can't ignore them. They align to what we subscribe and what we support as an organization, as a news organization. And to just go, we're not going to cover that tonight, felt icky. And so there's no good here. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and roll us into story number 1. You know, Jennifer, this is getting really old. It just seems like every week we are covering another BIPOC person shot by police and killed under, at best, very questionable circumstances.
Yeah, let's include unarmed into the mix.
And Columbus, Ohio finds itself in the unenviable position of being in the news for the second time in less than 3 weeks in another very questionable police shooting. And this one is even more questionable than the one that happened a few weeks ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you have some clips about this.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and roll the first clip. I will say the first clip, there's definitely, it talks about some tough issues. And, but I would say that there isn't anything visually that's really off in this. But I guess I'm going to do a little bit of a trigger warning before we roll the clips.
This is the second deadly shooting in our community in a matter of weeks.
Body cam footage from Officer Adam Coy shows him approaching an open garage.
Stunning disregard for life, and in this case, Black life.
It all started around 1:30 in the morning on Tuesday when police were dispatched to a 911 call from a neighbor.
There's a vehicle out front of my house, right beside of my house, in the street on a curve. It's been out there earlier this evening running, then they shut it off. Now it's back running again. It's been about a half hour.
None of the officers initially at the scene provide medical assistance to Mr. Hill. No compression on the wounds to stop the bleeding. No attempts at CPR. Not even a hand on the shoulder and an encouraging word that medics were en route.
Now, as we heard yesterday, Officer Coy has been relieved of his duties.
Well, you know what, Carrie, in this very long file, we found that Coy has a history of complaints. Many are for using force during arrests over the course of his career.
There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's just really a lot to unpack there. The other thing I will say, Malcontents, is we are going to play a segment of the body cam video. We will get to that shortly. And I will just say up front, the body cam video, section that we're going to play, is extremely hard to watch. This is what I've been able to learn about Andre Hall. Andre Hall was 47 years old. He graduated from college in 1995. He has no apparent criminal record or any major or appears even minor brushes with the law. He was said to be shy, a rather private individual, and he was a professional chef, a cook. And the word was that he was a very, very good cook. The story, as we understand it, we played the 911 call from the neighbor, the non-emergency call, which of course in itself just leaves me shaking my head. Yeah. I could pull out the key of my pocket right now and I'm upset. That's why I'm like, bleh, and could remote start my vehicle in the driveway right now over and over again if that's what I wanted to do. He shouldn't be dead.
No, he really shouldn't. And I'm with you. The whole the phone call, like what was the point of that? Somebody was nervous about somebody potentially sitting in a vehicle longer than they felt comfortable with. I don't understand what necessitated calling the police. It's just entirely senseless to me all the way around. Yeah, I, as a mom, I am so saddened. I'm grateful because I don't have to have that same kind of fear for my child, because I don't understand it. But I am so saddened for the mothers of Black men who potentially have to fear for their sons' lives every time they go out, and for really senseless reasons. So
it becomes a really strong argument. I'm on the record. I'm not an abolitionist for police. I don't like the term defund because I think that defund terrorizes a lot of people when they hear defund. I prefer the terminology of unburden, demilitarize the police. The other thing I will say is I think what we're witnessing here is this isn't a broken system. The system works perfectly in that the system is completely broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. It's irreparably broken. And I feel like as much as we like to talk about progress and all of these things, these continued incidences of these murders that just keep stacking up one on top of the other, are indicative of the fact that as a nation, we really haven't got beyond slavery and Jim Crow. Like we have in some ways, and we could talk about, yeah, we've had a black president, we've had all of these things. We also had black politicians during Reconstruction after the Civil War, and had Jim Crow after that. So I think it's really just an ongoing systemic issue, and has a lot to do with how the nation was basically founded upon systems of white supremacy that were meant to favor particularly white men and keep them in power. And we continue to see the repercussions of this over and over and over again.
One of the things that jumps out at me is, and we're going to play that body cam clip shortly, but one of the things that jumps out at me in the body cam clip as I kind of tee this up is, first of all, he didn't turn on his body cam at the start of the encounter. Neither did the other officer that showed up, which of course is red flag, right? How many times has that happened, right? We didn't turn on our camera. The cameras didn't work, right? How convenient, how many times these things don't get turned on. Fortunately for the justice system, fortunately for America, the body cams that they have are actually running all the time. They're in a pre-roll mode. And if you go to turn it on, it takes the 60 seconds prior, but there is no audio. So all we have is the 60 seconds before with no audio on the interaction. But as soon as the audio comes on, he's panning like a dog. Yeah. He is just all adrenaline.
Yes, he is. And I watched that earlier after you sent me the clip, and I was like, wow, this guy knows he messed up. And you can tell that he is not concerned about the person that he just shot. He is concerned about what potentially could happen to him, because he is like full of adrenaline. He's panicked. He's cussing. I mean, and it's absolutely, yeah, it's disgusting.
And it's one thing to say he was a 3-month rookie cop, because one of the things I'll always say is people do not know how they are going to respond in a situation until they get into a situation. We see this with the Chuds.
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
Right? They talk a big, brave game, but what we saw, for instance, in Salem, Oregon earlier this week is they were pelted by inert pepper balls. They're literally filled with baby powder, and they kind of ran out of the building for their life. And as somebody who's been pelted with the very spicy version of those balls with no mask on at the time, I mean, I was amused, but it does get into, I very well could have run for my life the first time I got pelted with those things. Now I know how I respond. This guy's a 19-year-old cop, and he has like a dossier this thick, literally, like the reporter held up something this thick on all of the investigations and use of force complaints against this guy. This isn't his first rodeo.
No, it's not. And so why we have to demand to know why these people are still being allowed to, one, serve in the line of duty, you know, serve as police officers, but also to have access to weapons. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many questions, and there's so many others like him that continue to do the same kind of thing and engage in these kind of behaviors and aren't ever really properly held accountable.
And we're seeing the power of police union and qualified immunity again, because the mayor has said they should be fired.
Yes.
He's not fired.
No, he should be fired, and he should be prosecuted for murder is what should happen. And these things aren't happening. I mean, they're consistently not happening. And that is the problem.
It remains amazing to me that this rural community an hour outside of Dallas, Texas, in, you know, like the butt crack of deep East Texas, of Chud land.
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
And these guys, within 48 hours, first-degree murder, cop is locked up, $1 million bail, boom, boom, boom. And you don't see people rush into his defense. It's like, when did Texas become the bastion of police reform? Also, when you look, say, what's happened in Austin, where they defunded their police department by 35% with, like, literally no drama. Nobody even talks about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, they need to serve as examples, I guess, because the lack of accountability for this continued, excuse my language, shit, is just stifling. I mean, I can't understand why this continues to basically be the norm. It's normalized.
It is normal, and we're now 7 months past George Floyd, and I can't breathe.
Mm-hmm.
And when we look at the public reaction to this, it's almost numb, and that's even within the Black Lives Matter community, which is just there. I use the word outrage cautiously because it's a loaded word, and I know the chuds will just grab. See, he's outraged. He's calling for him to burn everything. No, but where is the outrage?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're so inundated with so much, especially recently, so much negative stuff. We have become desensitized to a lot of it. And that's the problem. People need to stop being desensitized and start becoming, I won't use the word outraged, I'll use the word enraged, about the fact that this continues to happen and nothing is really changing.
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and roll the clip. I said it before. I'm going to say it again. This is a really hard clip to watch. It is really graphic. But I think it's important for our audience and for America to see this. Now, the entire body cam clip that they released is 13 minutes. We're not going to play all 13 minutes here because, first of all, most of you would stop watching after probably 3 or 4 minutes, but we are going to share the entire clip later on tonight. It might be tomorrow, but we are going to release the entire clip. We have the entire body cam clip from Columbus, Ohio. So with all of that warning, very graphic, very hard to watch, I'm rolling the clip.
Put your fucking hands out to the side. Hands out to the side now. Roll to your stomach now. Yeah. Hey, don't get fucking close. I can't see his fucking hand. Get your hand up from underneath you now. We got a medic coming. Don't move, dude. Fuck. Roll over, dude. Get me support.
Okay.
Jennifer, as a former EMT, hearing that is really hard because I've heard those sounds before and I know what it means. It's really hard for me. I in editing that video, I timed because I went through and I went frame by frame. And I timed from the moment that you could make out his silhouette in the flashlight. What I know about cameras is that he probably could see him about a half a second earlier. Our eyes are actually a little better than cameras in low light situations. From the time, if I just go from the frames to he could see him, to the gun is out and he's fired at least his first shot. We have no audio, so we don't know the timing. It's 7 seconds and 4 frames. That video is 29.9 frames per second, 30 frames per second. So, what is it? 1/8 of a second. 7 1/8 of a second from walking up to Andre Hall is mortally wounded.
Mm-hmm.
And no weapon found. Let's recap what we said. No weapon found. No significant criminal history out there. And when I say significant, I mean anything more than like a traffic ticket, right? Because there'll probably somebody out there 2 days from now will go, "Yeah, speeding ticket 3 years ago, so you had it coming," because that's part of the strategy to smear the victim in this. No weapon in his hand, made no threatening gesture. I mean, candidly, I watched this video, and if I was walking out of my garage, I had somebody in the doors open and I see someone with a flashlight and the flashlight is like in my face and it's 1:30 in the morning, I'm walking towards that person.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I want to know what the hell that person's getting ready to do to walk in my flipping garage.
Yeah, exactly. I was also kind of struck by the amount of profanity used by the officer. It's like, that seems so unnecessary and just kind of emblematic of how panicked he was about what he had done. There's so much wrong with that video, the lack of compassion, the lack of concern for the victim, all of these things, how panicked and like full of adrenaline he is. Did you see the look on the other officer's face?
Yeah.
Like, what have you done kind of look?
Yeah, totally. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't understand why that has become the norm. Like, it's shoot first, ask questions later. I just don't.
We don't know. What we can hope at this point is that prosecutors in Columbus, Ohio, are looking at the same things that we're looking at and drawing the same conclusions that we're drawing.
I hope so. I mean, I think we all know what it boils down to, really. And I think it's beyond the point of weeding out those considered bad. The system is so irreparably broken, the police system, that it just needs to be completely reformed. I don't know what else to say.
And I think it's a really valid point, right? And that's why I say the system isn't broken. The system works perfectly. It's just the system is completely broken by design. Yeah. And I think there are some people who say abolish the police, and they truly mean no law enforcement, just get rid of it. Mm-hmm. There are other people who say abolish police, and that's not what they mean. What they mean is to completely abolish the existing system and replace it with something from the ground up. And the more these stories come out, the more I'm moving into that camp.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, it's the same thing when we talk about white supremacy and white supremacists and what that means. We can denounce Nazis and white supremacists all we want, but until we break down this larger system of white supremacy that the nation was founded upon, that, is meant to favor white men of a particular class and status, we can get rid of all the white supremacists, KKK, whatever, Nazis we want. We're still going to have this bigger system in place that needs to be, dismantled and rebuilt.
And on the subject of white supremacy and a bigger system, you would talk to me about doing something at the start of the show, and we kind of dove into it, and I skipped it. And so with that, I appreciate your patience, Jennifer. And let's go ahead and do what you wanted to do at the start of the show. And thank you also for the patience to our audience.
So this is the land acknowledgement, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I am actually coming to you, and the show actually comes from the Seattle area. I'm coming to you on University of Washington land, and so we always do a land acknowledgement anytime we speak, because we acknowledge the Coast Salish peoples of this land, the land which touches the shared waters of all tribes and bands within the Suquamish, Tulalip, and Muckleshoot nations. We acknowledge the people past, present, and future of the Duwamish tribe, the Muckleshoot tribe, and other tribes on whose traditional lands we work and study, as we do at the University of Washington. But I would encourage everyone, local and national, to pay attention to whose land you are situated on, and how you came to be there, and what these peoples are doing today, what these nations are doing today, because it's really important, and it's really important that we acknowledge that past. Yeah. So thank you for letting me do that.
Thank you. And we will add that to the show, Jennifer. And I really appreciate you doing that for us. And we will make sure that we get it at the very top of the batting order. And with that, I think we're going to move on to story number 2 as we include our very unhappy Christmas Eve show.
Yes.
No more merciful beheadings. And call off Christmas.
Oh, my goodness gracious. It has been a roller coaster of a week, especially if you're among the 12 million unemployed, the 40 million who are facing eviction or foreclosure, or if you are in the 33% of small businesses that are predicted to fail by June of 2021, or if you're a restaurant owner of the 45% of restaurants that are expected to fail by the end of 2021. It's been one hell of a last 4 days.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I think that there are most.
I think what I'll do, Jennifer, is we'll roll the clips, and we'll explain a little bit what a Nero decree was and how that's a little applicable right now.
Yeah.
Well, tonight, last-minute demands from a small group of senators are leaving the $900 billion COVID relief bill on hold.
It's been more than 6 months since Congress passed a stimulus package, but lawmakers say they are finally close to getting that deal across the finish line.
Well, it's better than nothing, David. But I think the bottom line here is that we have avoided a recession in the first quarter. The issue then becomes, what about the second quarter?
On this vote, the yeas are 359, the nays are 53. The second portion of the divided question is adopted.
I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of calendar number 12, H.R. 266.
Is there objection to proceeding the measure? Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent that the McConnell substitute amendment at the desk be considered and agreed to, and that the bill as amended be considered read a third time.
Is there objection? Without objection.
I know no further debate on the bill as amended.
If there's no further debate, the question is on the passage of the bill as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it.
President Trump was expected to sign it, but yesterday said the stimulus checks should be pumped up from $600 to $2,000 each.
Nancy Pelosi here trying to call the president's bluff. You remember that the president said he was upset with this relief bill because the amount of money going to individuals at $600 was too small. He said he wanted $2,000. So Nancy Pelosi said, fine, you want $2,000? I'll put that on the House floor. Well, we saw that just within the past hour. Republicans blocked the measure to increase the funding from $600 to $2,000.
What's the F-bomb? This is written. This is written.
I have to hit another button.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
I mean, I don't even know where to start.
Oh, does anybody really? Like, I mean, at this point, you oscillate between rage and laughter because what else are you supposed to do? I mean, really.
The other thing, don't forget, is he also vetoed the defense spending bill of over $700 billion, which also negated pay raises for all of our members in the military.
Oh, I know. It's just absolute insanity, which is why when you brought up the Nero decree, I was like, oh, okay, this whole scorched earth thing makes total sense.
Yes. And we'll talk in a minute about the Nero decree, but there's so much misinformation out there. Yeah. And I've read some stories that have said that some foreign operatives have actually jumped on this to spread misinformation to low information voters. I don't think we have low information voters that watch our show.
No, I don't think so. So Fox News, something.
So Trump's argument out of the gate, 1 second. I knew he was going to wake up. Trump's argument, there we go. We've got Yoda Vision, everybody. It's Yoda Vision 2000 on Christmas Eve. He is here to spread some joy and pug hair. Because they shed their body weight every 12 hours, don't ya?
Yeah, you.
Don't ya? Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. There's actually two bills that have been held up. The first bill is the $900 billion COVID relief bill. The second bill is $1.4 trillion omnibus bill, which basically is the funding bill for the U.S. government. And if there isn't an agreement come Monday, 2.1 million federal workers will no longer be getting paychecks, and 850,000 to 1 million will be furloughed from their jobs, not counting the U.S. Postal Service.
Yep. People have forgotten the last time we were thrust into a government shutdown, what a mess that was. Now add like a, intensifying pandemic into the mix. Increased unemployment rates. And do you remember what happened to federal programs like SNAP and other TANF, other programs during that time? It was an absolute disaster. So yeah, I am literally so disgusted that it has reached this point that, come the week of January 2nd, I think there's actually, for people on unemployment, you can actually receive one more week, but after that, and unless this is settled, people who have been struggling for months with little relief from their government are going to be struggling even more. We've talked about previously how many people are facing evictions, all of these really, really terrible things that nobody seems to really urgently want to prevent.
5 million Americans will become below the poverty line on Sunday morning, literally this Sunday morning. That's their Christmas present.
Yep.
Yeah. And this kind of ties into the Nero decree. So for our viewers who might go, what the heck is the Nero decree? The Nero decree actually has nothing to do with Emperor Nero or Rome. It actually has to do with Germany and Adolf Hitler and 1945. And it's a little bit of a tenuous analogy, but it's not at the same time. So when a military is in retreat, particularly a losing military, one of the things that a losing military will do in retreat is to slow down the progress of the enemy chasing them, is destroy everything behind them as they are going by. The Nero decree went a lot further than that, though. Adolf Hitler felt absolutely betrayed by the German people. The German people had failed him, had abandoned him. It was because their lack of will and their lack of faith in him, literally him, because he was just completely out of his friggin' mind, that the Nero decree went even further. It was to leave absolutely nothing behind. And nothing behind for the German people, that they deserve to die with him and Germany because of their lack of faith.
Yeah, so it's actually called the Decree Concerning Demolitions in the Reich Territory. It happens in March of 1945. And yeah, his orders are just like, none of this is useful. We don't want to leave anything behind for the Allied forces. But I also if if I can't have this and I'm going down, we're going to wipe everything out and you're all going down with me.
Yes, exactly. And Trump's actions seem to tie very, very closely to him losing the election on November 4th. He had 60 court challenges. He only won one of the 60. And the one that he won was like on this very itty bitty thing that like was a couple of hundred votes, and it actually threw out like 89 of their votes in the process. So it made no change in anything. And slowly, one by one, his allies, or what he perceived as allies, are leaving the metaphorical bunker. Or maybe the literal bunker. We don't know. Well, we know he's not at the White House, but we don't know where he's been hanging out in the White House.
Yeah, exactly. No, he's definitely, doing some straight scorched earth. You're going to pay for abandoning me. We talked a little bit before the show. I was telling you how they're having like a virtual second inauguration for him on January 20th. I mean, there is just some absolutely insane behavior going on right now. And as you're talking about and explaining the Nero decree, I'm like, wow, this sounds a whole hell of a lot like what's going on right now.
Because when I look at it, right, this is getting back at Mitch McConnell, right? Because Mitch McConnell was the one that was doing his dirty work in the Senate, right? Mitch was the one, we're not going to budge on immunity for corporations on people getting sick with COVID. We're not, right? McConnell and the Republicans wanted to give people zero, right, for stimulus. So even the so he gave up, McConnell, he gave up a corporate immunity, and he put $600 on the table. And Manchin was in these conversations, and Manchin was cool with it. But of what we're hearing is Trump has turned on McConnell. Trump has turned even on Mike Pence. There was a trending topic yesterday on Twitter yesterday about Pence last stand or I can't Pence Day or something like that, because this was another possible little nugget. Like Mike Pence could say he's not going to certify the election results, which of course isn't going to happen. Bob Barr quit, basically was pushed out.
Yeah, it's a mess right now. And instead of tonight him worrying about this stimulus package and what's going to happen to the American people, he's tweeting misinformation about the election again. Like, this is what he's doing on his Christmas Eve. He is not worried about the state of the nation and the people, living in it and living, in this very precarious time. He's concerned about himself.
I've read some reports that said that Rudy Giuliani now is a voice of reason, that the people in his orbit that he is listening to are so batshit crazy.
What's the F-bomb? This is written. This is written.
They're so batshit crazy that Rudy now is sane, which of course is kind of terrifying.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrifying. And I think it's the whole Sidney Powell and Mike Flynn and the martial law and seizing the voting machines and forcing, new elections in the, battleground states where he lost. That is absolutely insane to me that it's even getting to the point of that kind of conversation.
You heard the clip from CNBC, which from a financial dude, I can't remember their name at this point, who was excited because he says, well, this at least will keep us from falling, keep this recession running, right? It'll get us out of recession for a quarter. And then the implication was, what will Joe Biden be able to accomplish to do another package, right, in that conversation? So we're adding almost 1 million people a week now to unemployment rolls, which is like as bad as it was in April. And I'd rattle 40% of all black businesses have already, small business owned by black business owners have already failed. 45% of restaurants are predicted to collapse next year. 33% of small businesses by June. And that was if this package passed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, it was a Band-Aid. It was a temporary fix. It was never meant to be a long-term solution, but we desperately need that Band-Aid. And it looks to me, and I'm sure probably to you, that we're not getting this Band-Aid.
we're not going to get anything. My prediction is that even if Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, God, I can see his face. I'm drawing his blank name. So we're just going to leave it there. If they come together, if the House and Senate come together and here's your $2,000, Donald, right? I still think he's going to say no. He'll find some other reason to say no, because this is about punishing the American people for their lack of perceived loyalty.
Exactly. And that's exactly what it is. It's like narcissistic sociopath behavior is what it is. And if you look at some of the complaints he made about the package, these were the same things that he previously was in agreement to. So I don't understand where this is coming from. It's not like he didn't know the trajectory of the talks. It's so baffling to me and just really speaks to his character or lack thereof.
And one of the things that's being tossed around by the low informed voters is they're combining together the $900 billion COVID relief package and the $1.4 trillion omnibus package. So what they're saying, what the memes and the stuff I'm seeing is, it's like, oh, well, there's money in there for Israel. And it was like, no, the money for Israel wasn't in the COVID package. That's in the omnibus package. But Trump wants you to believe that because you believe anything that he will say, because you're so far down the rabbit hole with him that you're like, see, he's doing the right thing. He's going to cut out all of this pork in this federal aid. But that wasn't in the COVID relief bill at all.
No, he's draining the swamp, whatever. He's not, he is the swamp. He had actually retweeted something. I was going through his Twitter today, which I can only do in really small images. And he had retweeted something similar to that, to the effect of talking about the foreign money going to coming out of the COVID bill or something to that effect. He'd retweeted something he had complained about in 2014 that he thought had linked up to it, but really didn't make any sense. So yeah, he's totally stoking that misinformation.
Well, we'll probably be talking about this on Monday.
Oh, I'm sure.
And with that, I'm going to go ahead and roll our first commercial.
To the side. Music has a power greater than words can really express. Songbird, sing a song to me. Let me know where I'm supposed to be. It's such a shame, yeah. Well, I was your TV girl. The EP is called Blue, and my website is classicelishamusic.com.
Hi, Malcontents. I'm David, the Malcontent, and I'd like to talk to you for a moment about supporting independent media. When you support us, you help us bring the before, during, and after. You help us defend the First Amendment. You help us amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices, and you help us hold leaderships at a local, state, and federal level accountable. None of this would be possible without support by viewers just like you. When you become a patron for as little as $5 a month, you help buy technology, safety equipment, and help cover travel expenses so that we can continue to bring you news that you trust. If you can't become a patron, you can do a one-time donation on Venmo, and your dollars will go to the exact same causes. With your continued support, we can continue to amplify BIPOC and LGBTQIA voices while showing the truth on what is happening in the world around us. Once again, thank you. Yes, it's that time of the show when we talk about you supporting independent media, as I support 18 pounds of pug. We're getting lots of compliments on our snowflakes, by the way, Jennifer, tonight.
Impressive.
I think we'll probably keep them through New Year's Eve, since people are saying they're finding it enjoyable and relaxing. We do all of this as volunteers. There's a team of 20 of us that are behind the curtain, so to speak. And everybody here volunteers their time. I learned something this week that if you were to have a video that gets 2 million views on YouTube, and that video is monetized. So in other words, you're running ads on the video, which is something we don't want to do. For those 2 million views, you're going to make about $1,200 to $1,400. That's it. And the reality is that when it comes to big tech is basically sticking it to content creators at this point, in the name of CPM, clicks per thousand, which I won't get into the whole business of it because the whole business of it is kind of icky. But when you become a patron, you help us continue to bring the message. And we have a special that we are running for one more week. It will end next Thursday on December 31. If you become a patron, you will be entered in to win a black box premiere from the Ally League. You can't buy a black box premiere, but you can win one through us. For every $5 that you pledge on your monthly pledge, you have a raffle ticket that will be entered. We're going to be doing the drawing on Monday, January 4th. So I believe just 10 days from now. And we're going to do it live right here on the show. And we're going to let you know who you won. So you can help support us and help continue this mission that we're on to support BIPOC and LGBTIAQ voices. And with that, we really appreciate it. And now we're going to go into our number 3 and another uplifting story.
Hallelujah! Holy shit! Where's the Tylenol?
There's like nothing but bad news on the COVID front. Travel numbers are, people getting on airplanes they're ridiculous. I mean, just quite frankly, they're ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What was it in the messages today? Like 1.2 million TSA travelers today?
1.2 million today. Tomorrow is a very historically low number for people to travel by plane. The 1.2 million number, we're going to have to wait to see what the final count is out of the TSA. They may have bested March 16th today. And on that backdrop, we will roll over 60,000 dead Americans for the month of December. That's just for the month of December, and December 24 isn't even over. We still have 6 1/4 days, 6 1/4 or 6.5 days to go. Yeah. And this brings up this topic of this meme that we had wrote, right? There was this meme, the most deadliest days in American history. We have a story on malcontentnews.com that we wrote where we ripped that meme apart as for all of the errors and omissions that were in that meme. And then some malcontents brought out some stuff on where we ripped it apart, where we got kind of rightly ripped apart, and we updated it a little bit. And you kind of turn it into events. But one of the things that people were saying on this, Jennifer, was, well, in the 1918 pandemic, there were months where 65,000 people died in a month. And our counter back was, well, can you provide daily stats? Because we were talking about daily. And it's like, well, no, but we know it has to be more because it was this month over this period, but we don't exactly know, right? So we're going to break 65,000 this month, COVID deaths, with hands tied behind our backs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's particularly interesting, too, when people cite the 1918 numbers, considering we're also in the throes of a world war. And record keeping back then was not like stellar. So all of that aside, we're surpassing that. It's not looking any better. We keep having these people who want to attach wearing a mask or the lack thereof to their freedom, which makes zero sense to me, because your, quest for freedom that you've attached to not wearing your mask is killing other people. We keep having sick people going into work because they need to survive, spreading it there. We have people holding parties, like the video I sent, what was it, yesterday, about the conga line at the one of the Republican clubs in New York, where they had the unmasked conga line party, and then came out and tried to argue that, basically we're paranoid zombies for social distancing and masking, and this violates their First Amendment right to peaceably assemble, and then using that really revolutionary language, calling Cuomo a king, and just very, very troubling arguments. So I don't know, people need to do their part. We're not going to get past this and return to any kind of semblance of normalcy or any kind of new normal until people do their part. Science can only do so much. And as we can see right now, the vaccine rollout has not been without flaw.
That's being generous.
Yeah. I'm trying to be generous because, it's a holiday. But yeah, it's just bewildering to me that you have these sections of people that are willing to jeopardize the lives of others, including people they potentially care about, just to eschew wearing a mask or these public health mandates. I don't even know what else to say about this.
Well, and the IHME updated the numbers nationally and for each state, and they're now predicting Washington was at about 6,700 fatalities for the state of Washington by April 1, and we're now over 8,000. Merry Christmas Eve from the IHME and the University of Washington.
Yep. I think what is particularly troubling about this is a lot of the narrative tries to say, oh, this is something that, is really only dangerous to people that are older or have these underlying conditions. And we've seen over and over again that is not the case, that it's, actually impacting it. We talked about South Africa last week. That's actually impacting younger, healthier people. And they had talked about the potential for that occurring here as well. And it always kind of bewilders me as a parent and a teacher that people are in such a hurry to put their kids back in public schooling. I understand it for certain people who this has really been single parents or people in, particular communities where it's been really, really difficult to find childcare or to be able to make ends meet because they have this added burden of, having to keep their children home and oversee that education. But it's just, I just don't know that it's worth it.
Well, let's remember the same people, Jennifer, that are cheering Trump's decision to block the stimulus package and block the omnibus bill are putting 40 million people in jeopardy for their housing. If they lose their housing, their kids have no way to go to school. Not only that, but if they lose their housing, their address no longer exists in whatever respective school system they're in.
Yep, I know. And that's what's so troubling to me, I think, too. It requires, the remote schooling requires, this added thing of you have to have a consistent internet connection. You have to have some kind of device to be able to, do the schooling. There's studies that have come out already that are really concerned about this COVID generation of students and the education they're receiving, how it's not really addressing inequities. It's not really addressing special education. There's a lot of so much problematic stuff with this. And from my vantage point as a parent who has children in the Seattle school district and who teaches at the college level, I feel like really the Seattle school district could have done a better job crafting something that is more inclusive. And I know it's hard, but it's been a real struggle for my kids and a lot of other parents and children I know, and it's just not ideal. And to jeopardize it even further and potentially put these children even farther behind is such a disservice to everyone. So,
And as a reminder to everybody, because I think it can get lost, right? We're two white people up here talking about these issues. Of the 40 million people that are facing eviction or foreclosure, 80% of those people are BIPOC.
Yep.
And COVID is ravaging the BIPOC populations, particularly indigenous and black populations. Now, here in Washington state, it is disproportionately ravaging the Hispanic population in particular. It has been brutal when you look at the state data on the Hispanic population. And I know some people will say Hispanic is a construct. Yes, but we're not going to sit here and list off all of the countries in Latin and Central America and South America to do that. Hence why I'm using the word Hispanic.
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with, like farm workers in Eastern Washington and the close proximity farm workers are having to work in. I was reading a story before we went on this evening about the Cherokee Nation being so concerned. They finally got 975 doses of the vaccination. And so they were actually kind of prioritizing at some point native language speakers because they'd lost so many to COVID that they were concerned that they were going to lose their, people that could speak and teach the language. So these are the kinds of things, the decisions people are having to make. And you're right, we're white people. We have this kind of particular privilege that other people don't have. But, it's interesting to me because I teach at Seattle colleges and I teach predominantly BIPOC students. And so there's been a lot of different kinds of struggles that my own children don't necessarily have to deal with, like, lack of internet connection, all of these other things that people are dealing with. And I just think it's such a huge disservice to further jeopardize any kind of stability students have. So, I'm so absolutely disgusted with our government right now and how, they're treating the people and basically holding this much needed stimulus hostage, and the potential long-term ramifications of that.
And what would be the implications be in the fight against COVID if you have a federal shutdown?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Then you're looking at people who are also facing, eviction, who are potentially losing, their SNAP benefits, medical benefits, these things that come through some of these government programs. What are we doing about the vaccination administration if we shut down the federal government? There's all of these different things, but at this particular point, going back to that Neuro decree, he is so concerned about himself. He's going to put that above anything else. And for some reason, apparently in his own mind, rationalizes that everybody else should suffer along with him as some kind of form of retribution.
And the question is, how far are we all going to suffer? And I think the big message here is limit your exposure to people outside of your small little tribe and wear a flippin' mask and wash your hands like crazy.
Yeah, wash your hands, carry hand sanitizer, wear a mask. Don't attach your freedom to public health mandates because it's not the same thing. We've already talked about this. The Supreme Court has already gone through this argument. Be smart. Think about other people. Think about your family.
Jennifer, do you have any good news for us tonight?
Yeah.
Do you want me to roll up the next clip?
Please roll the clip so we can talk about something good.
All right, we're going to talk about something. We're going to end on a high note.
Hey.
Take it away, Jennifer.
Clip?
You're on. Roll. Go. It's all you.
All right. Happy, joy. I am so excited about Deb Haaland's appointment to Secretary of the Department of the Interior. This is such a huge thing. She gave her, I think it was the acceptance of the nomination last week. And this is what we're kind of talking about at the beginning of the show. She gave the land acknowledgement to the Lenape Nation. She herself is the Guana Pueblo. She was born in Winslow, Arizona, thinking about the Eagles every time I say that. But she has this incredible story. And, not only was she a single mom, she, was on food stamps for a while. She had all these, she was unhomed for a while. She got her bachelor's degree at 34, then went on to get a JD, served in all of these public positions. She was a tribal administrator. She was representative 2018 to the president until she accepted the nomination. Prior to that, she was New Mexico's Native American Vote Director, chair for the Democratic Party of New Mexico. She's done all of these really amazing things. And she talked a little bit about in her acceptance speech what a big deal it was for an Indigenous woman to be the head of the Department of the Interior, because the Department of the Interior, of course, houses the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And so for a long time, that office actually was the architect of all of the programs that were designed to both physically and culturally exterminate Native peoples. And so actually, prior to the Department of the Interior, up until 1849, the Bureau of Indian Affairs was actually housed in the Department of War, which really makes sense if you think back about the longer history between the nation and Native peoples, that it would be housed in the Department of War because there was so much war, kind of like warfare directed at Native peoples in the context of extermination. But after the 1850s, you started to see more of these assimilation policies. She talks a lot about, the legacy of boarding schools, which was basically compulsory education that ripped Native families apart. It was a lot of very abusive, often violent, stripped them of their language, stripped them of their culture. So she does a lot of stuff with the murdered and missing Indigenous women. So I think it's just at such a hugely under-recognized historic moment that an Indigenous woman is ahead of, this department that at one point tried to basically exterminate Indigenous people. Not to mention, she's also going to oversee, a response to climate change. So this is a huge change from where we've been, not only in the context, she's a woman of color, she's an Indigenous woman. I am so, as a historian, absolutely excited about this. And I hope people look a little bit more into her story and really see some of her accomplishments. Because it wasn't until 2018 that we actually had 2 Native American women in government. And they've been very much excluded for a long time because the relationship between Native peoples and the federal government is so complex. And if you think critically about it, U.S. sovereignty is so dependent upon Native peoples and that recognition of sovereignty, that nation-to-nation sovereignty. I'm not going to get all crazy historical on everybody because I'm really excited, as you can tell. But I just think that this story is worthy of, attention. She's worthy of all of the accolades and everything that she is receiving. She's done incredible work. This is a hugely historic moment. I hope that everybody digs a little bit deeper into this and recognizes just how big this is. And yeah, that is our happy story for the evening because everything else has been.
You want me to roll the clip?
Yes. After I just spill for 5 minutes, sure.
The newly elected Congresswoman from New Mexico's 1st District was in Albuquerque in January in the front row at an MLK celebration. A predictable home visit for anyone like her. But until this year, no one like her had ever served in the House of Representatives.
Thank you so much.
She and Sharice Davids from Kansas became the first Native American women elected to Congress.
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, before I get started, could I ask for a point of personal privilege to have the members of this institution in the gallery recognize you as the first Native American woman to ever chair the House proceedings?
Thank you so much for having this hearing. It's extremely important. You were meant to serve, and I'm inspired by the vast amount of work that you've already done since you've been in your seat, so thank you so much for that. But all of your work is so important, and I'm grateful for every single thing all of you have done to raise this issue, and I want you to know that I stand behind you 100%. I stand here today, a proud 35th generation New Mexican and one of the first Native American women ever elected to Congress. I'm a symbol of our resilience as the embodiment of America's progress as a nation. Thank you. I'm proud to stand here on the ancestral homelands of the Lenape tribal nation. The president-elect and vice president-elect are committed to a diverse cabinet, and I'm honored and humbled to accept their nomination for Secretary of the Interior.
Jennifer, did I see a smirking Congressman Crenshaw in those clips?
Oh, Crenshaw. I mean, it must have been like, I feel like it must have been really difficult for all of those white men to stand up and applaud, not only a woman, but a Native woman.
I think we have to go back to that. Was he a smirking Crenshaw?
Madam Speaker, Madam Chair, before I get started, could I ask for a point of personal privilege to have the members of this institution in the gallery recognize you as the first Native American woman to ever chair the House proceedings?
These are Chud.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Chud. Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
Such a polite little golf clap he had there. Yay.
Yes. Looked thrilled to be there. Yeah, they'd actually had a pretty heated exchange back in 2018 on an episode of Face the Nation that I was watching earlier today, when there were, right after the election, right after she was elected into office, Crenshaw as well. There were 4 of them there, but yeah, they had a pretty heated exchange over immigration and the wall and the separation of children and parents, because, you know, he's like, this is an idea. And it always really gets me when, you know, Americans are like, you know, in the context of separating families at the border, we're not like that. Yeah, we are. That was like, you know, one of the big things people did to, you know, to slave families that would separate mothers and children's husbands and wives, boarding schools. They literally, you know, ripped apart families. This has been a common practice, and they're doing it again because it was effective.
It was happening up to the 1970s, and it still technically happens today using the hammer of Child Protective Services.
Yes, absolutely. So there's all of these different things, and, you know, people talk about it like, oh, we're not like that, Americans. That's not who we are. Yes, it is. It's exactly who we are. It's who we've always been, and it's been effective, and so that's why they keep doing it. So I think I like spilled all of the good parts of the story I had to spill before you roll the clips because I got so excited.
But that's okay. That's the beauty of live production.
Yes. But this is such a, I mean, you could tell by the emotion in her voice what a big moment this is for, you know, not just an Indigenous person, but an Indigenous woman to have this monumental responsibility, considering the longer history of the Department of the Interior. And Crenshaw can smirk and golf clap all he wants. It's not going to change anything.
The history of, you know, you talked about the history of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and even in modern times, people, like, if you say to people, you know, name a corrupt cabinet, right, level position in there, and HUD is one that typically comes like up to the top of the list, right? The Bureau of Indian Affairs makes HUD look like it's run by Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts selling cookies and popcorn.
Yeah, the history of the Bureau of Indian Affairs is like, it's insanity. Going through and reading some of the documents and some of these quote unquote like plans they had to solve the Indian problem is absolutely like, it's just, you read it and it doesn't even seem like something, it's like something that would happen in a really bad movie. You know, if you turn back to like the early 20th century, they couldn't figure out why Native populations were were declining in population. And so they were actually monitoring population sizes and like trying to find ways to increase the population. It was almost kind of like gross what you would see in monitoring the production of livestock and livestock growth. Some of the stuff that comes out of the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Department of the Interior is just, yeah, it's astounding. So that's why I say this is such a huge monumental moment, because there were so many things, so many programs implemented to actually ensure that Native people did not retain their culture, that they assimilated. I mean, you go back and you look at the Indian Reorganization Act, which was a positive thing that came out around the New Deal. But after that, you had termination policy, where basically the federal government tried to terminate Native nations and, you know, basically abdicate their trust responsibility. So there's all of these things that Native people have overcome. And there's this really great series, if people are interested, that's written and produced by Native peoples. It's a PBS series called We Shall Remain. And it goes from, like, you know, the first contact at the Mayflower all the way up to Wounded Knee in the 1970s. And so it's a really, really great series. I use it a lot in my classes. It's all from an Indigenous perspective. There's some great historians and other scholars on there. So if people are interested in some of the things that Native peoples have had to overcome throughout history, I mean, yeah, it's definitely worth a watch.
And I think that's something a lot of people don't realize. And you know, it would be a good thing to do in the future when things maybe one day get remotely back to normal, is to talk about what happened at Wounded Knee on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the 1970s.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
In our lifetime.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which I don't think that a lot of people realize what happened there in 1973. It's certainly not taught in the history books.
No, you don't learn about it until you get it to like the college level. And that's if you're taking like specific classes about Native history. But the whole longer trajectory of the American Indian movement and some of the things, the occupation of Alcatraz, the Trail of Broken Treaties, these really interesting things, you know, the fish-ins in Seattle, you know, Fort Lawton, how, you know, they occupied Fort Lawton. There's all of these really, really important, you know, moments, these activist moments that come out of the 60s and 70s that you know, made some significant gains. The Bolt decision in the context of Native fishing rights in the 70s. Yeah, really, really good stuff, especially local stuff.
I'm like reading the comments and people see my eyes going down. It's because I'm reading some of the comments that are going by. One of the comments that's jumping out at me is apparently there are two COVIDiots out on 405 on an overpass near Kirkland tonight that are holding up a huge sign that says masks don't work.
Okay. I met these gentlemen in Starbucks the other day who was, you know, talking to somebody else, and he had his mask down underneath his nose, talking about how he had doctor friends who laughed at masks and said they didn't work, and all this other stuff. And I was like so enraged when I came out of the Starbucks. Yeah, it's mind-boggling to me.
Hallelujah!
If you're not convinced that it works, if it gives you like, I don't know.
It is incredibly frustrating. And what a way to spend your Christmas Eve. I mean, this is really a bold statement on what is going on inside in your life. Yeah. If you're standing on an overpass on 405 on Christmas Eve, holding up the sign that says, masks don't work.
Yeah, because, I mean, how many people are out on Christmas Eve anyways to see it? So.
I will be sure to let Dr. and Mrs. Malcontent know that masks don't work, and that everybody, when they're doing surgery, they don't need to wear masks to keep that environment sterile. It's just okay to breathe right inside those patients.
On that open wound, it's fine.
Just cut them open and cough inside of there, right?
Yeah. Don't worry.
What could possibly go wrong? Because masks don't work.
Exactly.
By the way, Chuds, if you're going to report the stream, no, mask work, wear a friggin' mask.
Yes.
And watch. All right. I think we're approaching the witching hour. I know we said we wanted to do an hour. I know we're over an hour, but we're not that far over. Yeah. I want to close with just some thoughts. It's real easy And I know I have certainly struggled with it this year, to get lost in the tornado of all of the bad things that have happened. And no matter how you slice it and no matter who you are, there aren't too many people, I think, on the planet that can go, 2020 was a good year for me. I think everybody has just kind of gone through different things, whether you were impacted by COVID, whether you were impacted by job loss, whether you're worried about your business, whether you're worried about loved ones, whether you were impacted by wildfires that swept the planet, or the most active hurricane season in the history of us keeping weather records going back to 1850, and 12 storms hitting the United States, something that has never happened before. Whether it is the farmers in Iowa who had 43% of their crops wiped out. And I could go on and on and on everything that has gone wrong in this year. There's always this thing that comes around in Christmas, these cliche statements of, Christmas is the one day of the year that we become the people that we always want to be. And then we go back to being assholes on the 26th. I think about, as we are in a divided nation that is, quite frankly, racked with sectarian violence, as we continue to witness almost day after day after day. And I'm reminded in World War I, when you had trench warfare, and on Christmas Day, they would stop fighting, and French and Belgium and British troops would join with German and Hungarian and Austrian troops, and they would smoke, and they would drink, and they would sing, and they would show each other's family pictures, and they would share food, and then they go back to their trenches and start killing each other in the next day. We are certainly not in a place in this country of World War I style trench warfare. In the Ardennes in 1944, during the Battle of the Bulge, the German troops and the American troops were engaged in very similar World War I style trench warfare. The trenches were so close, they could hear each other. The Germans started singing Silent Night. The American troops, who were literally struggling and clinging by their fingernails to stay alive, joined in song with them. And yes, they too went back to killing each other. And I don't think that we're there. I don't think we're that far apart as a country. One of the things that I've learned in my journey of 2020, and I've talked to people that are way outside on the Q side, and I've talked to some people, frankly, on the left, that scare me as much as some of the people that I've talked to on the right. But you know what I found? When it came to talking about the problems, the symptoms of the disease, so to speak, everyone agrees on the symptoms. Most people agree on what to call the disease. Where it all falls apart is in the agreement on how to treat it. We're better than this as a country. I still want to believe in that. I want to believe in what I've been told. But I am in a place where I can never go back because my eyes are opened up for the first time in my life. They've always been open, but they're in a place now where I'll never be able to turn my back on the inequity and the inequality that exists in our country and that it was founded upon. And when our founding fathers declared all men are created equal, it became a very flawed statement because really what they meant was rich, white, land-holding men. And everyone else is just along for the ride. We're now 230 odd years past those words, and they just don't apply anymore. And I'm not saying that we have to tear up the Constitution or that our founding fathers in the world that they understood in 1776 when they wrote those initial words and then wrote the Constitution in 1787 would realize in that time the problems that we would face today. But we have to face them, and we have to face them together. We're never going to agree on things, but my Christmas wish is that tomorrow, when everybody's just a little nicer, a little more gentle, and we kind of, for the most part, forget about everything that's going on, and most people aren't going to shit post on the internet tomorrow, including yours truly. I hope that we can hold on to that for more than 24 hours and not go back to beating all of our heads in when we get to the 26th. Because we have to unite. Because if we don't, we will fail. And there are forces and people out there that want to see nothing more than to see all of us fail, and none of us will benefit from that. Please think about that. Jennifer, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you so much for coming on the show again and sharing your Christmas Eve with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. Happy holidays to everybody that's watching.
And Yoda the Wonder Pug also says, Merry Christmas, where's my turkey? Also, something that we neglected to do through this entire show. Our mods and admins have been working on Christmas Eve, and they have been working silently. And it takes a special person to moderate the comments on one of these feeds because it's like a form of self-abuse. So if you love our mods, if you love all the work they do, please spam those hearts, particularly if you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Periscope. If you're on Twitch or if you're on YouTube, you could just like type thank you mods or put in a big long line of hearts or something. We'll keep the feed going for like 1 more minute so the mods can see all of the appreciation that you have for them. I know I appreciate the entire team that is behind me. I couldn't do half of what we do without them. And for that, I'm also very grateful on this Christmas Eve. Do you have any fun plans for tomorrow, Jennifer, that you care to share, or?
Well, when we're done here, I'm going to go meet my mom and do a socially distanced gift exchange. And then I'm going to come home and work out and probably sleep a lot tomorrow. So those are my fun plans. What about you?
We are going to do a socially distanced gift exchange with the grandkid. The grandkid is four, which is probably the most magical age for Christmas. And of course, it's just another kind of knee to the groin that it's happening in 2020. Because when you're 4 years old, you know who the fat guy in the red suit is, and it's real. It's super real. It's really magical, and nothing takes away from that at all. And then I think we're gonna come back here, and I'm with you. I see a nap in my future. Yoda, are we gonna nap tomorrow? Yes, sir. We're gonna. Yes. I approve of naps. Yes. All right. Malcontent, think about what we talked about tonight. We'll keep watching the stimulus for you. And with that, Jennifer and Malcontent, we are out. Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
Antifa, fuck you! You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.